What's up, everybody? This is Terrence Plummer II. You're tuned in to the UCF Football Updates Podcast. Let's go.
This is Mac Loudermilk, and you're listening to the UCF Football Updates Podcast.
What up, Night Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the UCF Football Updates Podcast. Today, I'm honored to say we have an absolute UCF legend on the show, former Knights running back Greg McCrae. McCrae is fourth all-time in UCF career touchdowns, fourth all-time in career rushing yards, and one of the best players from the Heupel/Frost era. Now he's having a successful career in the CFL for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Welcome to the show, Greg. Happy to have you on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm just glad to be on, talk to everybody.
Absolutely, man. Really excited about today. You were such an integral part of, UCF history and, that amazing era that UCF will never forget and the fans will never forget when, we went undefeated for 2 straight years. But I want to take it back a little bit. And I know you talked about your backstory a little bit, but, I want to start with that. I know out of high school, you came out of Miami and, you were under-recruited, really only had an offer from Navy before you transferred to UCF, but kind of get into that. Like, what was the story? Like, you only had, that one offer and you took it to Navy, but ultimately it didn't work out. Kind of what led you to getting to UCF?
So actually coming out of college, Army was another school that offered me, and one of the coaches who were at Army ended up going to UCF during the whole process. His name was Coach Dewitt.
Yeah.
And he was our special teams coach and linebackers coach. So in the process of me being at Navy, when I went there, honestly, I went there for the wrong reason. I went there to play football, but, that school is so much more. It's a great school, but it's so much more. And I feel like that just wasn't in the cards for me. So upon realizing that Coach Dewitt was at UCF, I ended up reaching out to him, trying to see if I could, just try to get into the school and just, fight my way into a roster, and I even told him at the time, I don't even mind coming on as a walk-on because I had that belief in myself that I would be able to, one day get put on scholarship if I was able to show that, I could play. And, really pretty much from there, me and him always had a good relationship. Even when I was in high school, he'll call me, check up on me and just talk to me. And, I felt like us having that good relationship allowed me to, reach back out to him when I was deciding to transfer from Navy. And ultimately it ended up me getting to UCF and, you just pay it off.
Yeah, sure. That's interesting. I didn't realize that Coach Dewitt was a part of the reason that you came over to UCF. So that's really cool. But you mentioned scholarship, and from what I've read, I think there was a pretty cool story about how Coach Heupel gave you your scholarship. So what was that story? Something with like a little bit of a prank first before you got it?
Yeah, so we were in meetings. I think this was the very first meeting before camp, his very first camp. He came in the spring. We did spring together. And then before the fall camp started, I think I had like 2 parking tickets from UCF.
Don't we
and
all?
And then I at the time I couldn't register for classes, so like that's how they knew about it. So I couldn't register for my classes. The academic advisors told them, and then literally like the day before they pulled this prank on me, I paid for the tickets. I paid for the parking tickets. So leading up to our meeting for fall camp, we were just sitting there in the team meeting room. Coach Heupel was sitting up there talking, and then Billy Ray came in. He was one of our DFOs, I believe. And, he just was like, God dang it, I keep telling you guys about this, and then just walked out the room. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, dang, what got him so upset? Like, I'm confused. I'm like, what's going on with him? Like, why is he so upset? So he walks out, and then he comes back in like maybe like a minute later, and there's some police. So the police come in, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, bro, like, what we got going on right here? Like what's going on with the team? I'm not thinking it's for me. I'm not thinking it's for me at all. I'm like, bro, somebody's about to like go to jail. They came into the meeting room. He's going off like, so in my head, I'm like, dog, what's going on,
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Billy Ray just gave the officer the floor to talk. And then he was like, yeah, is there a Greg McCrae in here? My heart immediately sunk because I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
in my head, I'm like racing through so many things. I'm like, what did I do? Like I'm like, what did I do to be,
Right.
have a police coming in here to come get me? So I didn't even say anything. I just got up and I walked to the front. Because I mean, eventually you're gonna tell me what I did. And then they were like, oh, like overpaid parking tickets. I'm like, am I really getting arrested for parking tickets? Like, all this is going on in my head, but at the same time, it's like it's just happening so fast, so I'm not really understanding.
Yeah.
So then out of nowhere, Coach Hyper was like, parking tickets. He was like, would this scholarship cover the parking tickets? And then like the whole room just like went crazy and started celebrating. And it was like I had a big smile on my face after my heart sunk. But it was a real cool experience and definitely like, one I won't forget for sure. Like ever.
Yeah, that's always, it's always cool to see those videos when teams release them and a guy gets on scholarship. So that's awesome. So obviously, you were on the team in 2017 when UCF had that historic year, and that probably had to vindicate your decision a little bit to transfer to UCF even as a walk-on. When you're, your first year on the team, you get to go undefeated and see that. What was that? Was there any part of you that it was like frustrated that you weren't like, like the year you had in 2018 was crazy? Was there any frustration of not being like, the guy yet on the field and getting on the field as much as you did, later on in your career, or how, or just in general, how did that season feel for someone like you?
Well, as a competitor, you always want to play. You always want to be out there. You always want to compete and be a part of the reason that you're winning. So like, yes, that part of it is a little like frustrating, or you get it down a little bit about it. But in all honesty, like coming in, I was I kind of expected not to play much just because like, I was a walk on. I wasn't like the guy
Right.
that they recruited to come in there. This is was I think it was Coach Hype, I mean, not say Coach Hype, Coach Frost, like second year, I think that was.
Right.
So it's like, he was bringing in his guys, and I didn't really expect to play much, but I did want to contribute in any way I could. So that came through with, playing special teams, and which Coach DeWitt was the special teams coordinator. So, every day I was out there in practice, I was trying to figure out any way I could to just get on the field and contribute as I could, even if it wasn't like carrying the ball or being a integral part of the offense. I just wanted to be out there and be able to travel with the team and go out there and have fun with the guys, and at least make a play here or there, or just be a part of the team in any way that I could. And special teams was my way onto the field my first year. It didn't matter. It didn't matter to me, like, like what I was doing, but I was going to give 110% every single time I was out there on special teams, offense, anything, any kind of role that they needed me to be in. I was going to give it everything I had, just because I just wanted to be out there and, show that I could play and that I belong. And honestly, in all honesty too, it was more so me trying to prove it to myself also. Just because, like you said, coming out of college, I didn't really have scholarship offers like that. So, sometimes there was things in my head that creeped into my mind, like, am I good enough to play at this level? Maybe I overlooked myself and thinking that I'm better than I actually am. But, I was like, what, I'm going to just go out there every day and try to, be the best version of myself. And then we're going to let it go from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that mindset? I mean, as someone, you have every year, high school players going to college, right? And they're all assigned some sort of ranking, 5-star, 4-star, or whatever, top 10 player in their specific state. When someone like, in your situation where you were under recruited, you might have been one of the best players of your high school team, but then when you jump up to the college level, everyone is that good, or most people are that good. What is that mindset of going from that high school level to being, the man, to not really getting too many offers and then having to, not take a scholarship initially and walk on, and then play on special teams. I mean, what is going through your mind? That kind of the psychology behind, like, can you make it? I mean, you said you held belief in yourself, but you also had some doubts. But what is that? What kind of mindset is it? Did it humble you, not, being that star high school or star kind of scholarship player that's everyone's hyping up? And how much did you really have to struggle and overcome in order to get to the point where, hey, I'm a key member of this team?
I would say that honestly that I've always been like a humble player, but it definitely did I feel like humble me even more, not being the guy, because like you say in high school, like I was the man. Like, whenever the game was online, I knew the ball was coming to me. So I come to college, and then it's like, I'm not the guy, I'm not the person that I wasn't their first thought, you know. So it was like now I have to prove that all over again, that that I can be that guy, that I can be the guy that you count on. I can be the guy that you uh game plan, for. And the mindset was just keep going, keep going, keep going, and keep pushing, and make them believe you. Just make them believe you. Even if they ain't showing that they believe in you, or they ain't giving you any leeway, just keep forcing your way and keep trying to forge your way through it, because it's gonna pay off in the long run. Because there were some times where, like, I'm telling you, like, I was out there and I'm doing things, and I'm like, man, like, I don't know if they seeing it, but I just got to keep going out there, and I got to keep performing. And then, like, and it's crazy because they wouldn't really say anything to me, but like people will pull me to the side sometimes. They'd be like, listen, just keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
And they tell me, like, they know it's tough, but like just keep doing what I'm doing. So like those little comments here and there definitely help out a lot. And because they let me know that, like, even though I don't feel it or see it right now, that I am making an impression. So where I'm doing now, I just gotta keep going and even turn it up even more and get better each and every day.
Yeah, no doubt about that. What I think is even like a crazier part of your journey is the fact how much you exploded onto the scene in that 2018 year when you rushed for over 1,000 yards. But it wasn't even like UCF had a hole or a void at running back. Adrian Killens was on the team and established himself as like a freshman phenom a couple years before and was obviously killing it. Then you had guys like Otis Anderson, who had a great freshman year, and you had Bentavious Thompson, and you had even a guy like Taj McGowan. When you look at that perspective before UCF Nation or anyone in the country knew who you were, you're thinking UCF is set at running back. They don't. There's not going to be any new names that come in here until these guys graduate, or the guys that are in there are going to be behind them. Was that like? I mean, it was awesome to have such a deep running back room, but was that also a challenge in your head, thinking like, how am I gonna share the field with all these guys, because they've already established themselves. The coaches aren't going to just take them out of the lineup. And how were you able to, did you know prior to the 2018 season your role would massively increase even with all those other running backs in your unit?
No, nah, not at all. It was the same, because you gotta remember now, like, we went from Frost to Hypo, so I felt like it was going to be the same cycle over again. So I was, you know, AK, Otis, Taj, all those guys, they proved themselves through film with the last coaching staff, and they knew what kind of players they were getting. Coming back to the next year with me, I didn't really have too much film for them to go off of. So it was like, okay, I gotta prove myself again. The same way with Frost and them, I gotta prove it again to Hypo and our coaching staff. So it wasn't really. I didn't really have any expectations of having like a bigger role or anything like that. I just thought it was going to be the same kind of cycle from the last year, which I was okay with, just because, like I said, like, I was going to prove it again. I did it one time. It can get a little frustrating because you feel like you got to prove yourself again, but I was okay with that because and honestly, I was happy at UCF. I was happy with the guys in the room, especially the running back room. Like, we were so tight knit that, like, sometimes, like, it didn't feel like I was trying to prove myself. It felt like I was just another guy on the team. Um, and like I was a part of the family, So uh, I didn't. So to answer your question, no, I didn't think my role was going to expand, but obviously it did, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was kind of a shocker for us fan base because, you hear about walk-ons coming on if you're a big fan of the team, but you really don't know if it's just like a depth play or, if they're actually gonna get a role. But it's always cool to see that when a guy like you or Alec Holler or some of these walk-ons that came on are able to carve out really a big role, and especially someone like you who turned into one of the best running backs in school history. So that, going into 2018, obviously you're coming off that undefeated season, fresh off a win against Auburn in the Peach Bowl. And then, you lose Frost and Heupel's coming in, and you have obviously a ton of talent, returning. What was that like, after having such a special year to not only have to switch to a new coaching staff, but did you guys feel like you were going to be able to run it back, or did you think that winning streak was going to continue really under a new staff? And what was how was that transition?
Uh, I feel like the transition was good. There was a lot of mixed emotions from uh, Coach Frost leaving, just because the success that we had there, and we wasn't really sure what was going to change coming to the next year. We knew for a fact that we had the talent though. Like that was one thing we knew that we had. Um, so like talent wise, we felt confident going against anybody. It was just more so like understanding understanding new offense, understanding new defense. Calling things different things. That was just the biggest thing. Just trying to make sure we got over that learning curve as quickly as we could, so that way that we could it wouldn't look like a first year offense. It wouldn't look like a first year defense. It would look like we were comfortable in everything that we were doing. So I mean that was really the main thing. But like I said, like talent wise, we knew what we had, what we were bringing back. We knew we had talent across the board. It was just making sure that we could pick up the offense and go as efficiently as we could. And in all honesty, too, Coach Heupel did a very, very good job of like as far as offense wise of breaking things down for us, and then implementing some of the things that we were successful with last year, the year prior, and implementing into his offense, and McKenzie, and trying to make sure that like we like that things meshed very well. So he did a really good job of like getting the whole offense on the same page and making sure that like it wasn't like a big old dump of information, a big old dump of transition.
Yeah, no doubt. For me, what kind of sticks out that season when it comes to you is, the first half of the season, you definitely had some good games. You had a couple touchdowns, but then just that last half of the season, you really broke out. I mean, I think like something like 9 out of your 10 touchdowns that year came all in that second half. And I remember there was a game in the middle of the season, it might have been ECU or Temple, where you took a couple big runs, and then even that Temple game, you rushed for close to 200 yards. Was there ever like a moment where you really that season you felt like it all started to click and like damn, I've arrived and like I've cemented my spot? Because the first half you had some good games, but nothing like you did in the second half. So was there like a moment where it all clicked for you that season?
Uh, no, and the reason why I say that is because I feel like as a group, any of us could have did it. It just so happened that the ball rolled for me. Like I feel like honestly, like that was the best running back room I've. It's the best running back room I've ever been a part of.
No
I mean,
doubt.
like you got Otis who could hit it from anywhere. You got me, AK, Taj. Taj was a great player, and he didn't get as many opportunities as we did, but he could have did just the same. And then we had Bentavious, who was, back on the depth chart, but he could have, when you see what he did when he got his opportunities, So I mean, I just think that I just so happened to be in at the perfect time sometimes to get the calls or whatever it may be. But also we had a really good O-line, so I don't think it clicked. I just think I was just fortunate enough to be in those situations, honestly.
Right, right. Sticking with that 2018 season, you our guys obviously went undefeated in the regular season, but there was definitely some close calls where, it looked like the winning streak could have, ended, whether it was that Memphis game in the rain, when you were down big at halftime, or even the Memphis Conference Championship game when we were, down big at halftime, or there's a couple other games there that got pretty close. I think it was like Temple or Navy or one of those that was also fairly close. What did it take? Like, how much harder did it get to keep the win streak alive as you got deeper and deeper into it? Because 12 games, 13 games, that's not too unprecedented in college football. It happens. But when you start getting into the 20s, we're talking about a historic run that very few teams in the history of college football have been able to do. Was there a sort of pressure to keep winning, just for the sake of like just keeping the streak alive? And like, how much did that streak weigh in the back of your guys' mind during those close games, and being able to fight through that adversity and actually get those close wins?
In all honesty, not one time have we ever talked about a streak. Not one time. And honestly, I don't even know how long our streak was. Like,
Really?
still to this day. Yeah. So um, there was never any pressure about a streak or anything like that. We just wanted to go out there and we just wanted to win. Um, and in all those games, that was close games. The only one that I was actually kind of nervous for was the first Memphis game.
Mhm.
Not even the second one. Like, I had extreme confidence that we were gonna uh, come back in that one. But the first one, yeah, it was a little tough. It was a little tough. But there was never, at least from my point of view, there was never any pressure on keeping a streak or continuing to win. We were just going out there and we were just playing for each other, honestly. A streak was never anything that was on our mind at all. Not one
Right.
time.
What about as a team, I think we're all, you guys are all competitors, and, when you go undefeated, you expect to be playing in the most significant game. I always say college football is the only sport where you can go undefeated and not be in the playoffs. In every other sport, if you're undefeated, which would be unrealistic in a lot of other sports, of course, because there's more games, but in general, if you're undefeated, you're going to play for the championship. What kind of frustration was it in back-to-back seasons not to be able to be invited to that playoff? I mean, did that affect your guys' like mindset or your confidence at all, or just in general? What did that do to the team when you see 2 years in a row you can go undefeated and just sorry you're left out?
It was frustrating. Just because like you said, we went on a win streak for a long time. We never talked about it, but we went 2 years without losing, and we got to the point where we felt like, okay, like, this is fine the time, everything's cooking. We made it this far, and then left us out again. And so I feel like each week we were just trying to prove it. And I think that goes into part why we never talked about the streak, is because like we just felt like the streak didn't really mean anything. We were just always trying to prove it each and every week that we were one of the better teams in the country. And we wanted to, be able to prove it, and to be able to prove that we, try to get into the playoffs and play some of the teams who are, supposed to be the best of college football, but we never got that opportunity to. So it was a little frustrating. It was just, I guess, it's just something that we just had to deal with. But that was pretty much just the mindset of the team. Just go out each week, prove it that we are one of the best teams, and do what we can to get the win.
Yeah, and then just the final thing I'll say about that year. So you go into the Fiesta Bowl to play LSU, and obviously it's a couple weeks removed from Mackenzie's devastating injury. Going to that game, did you guys, feel pretty confident, even without Mackenzie? And how do you feel that game would have been with Mackenzie playing. Obviously, no disrespect to Daryl Mack, but we know who Mackenzie Milton was. Do you think you win that game with Mackenzie? And obviously, LSU went on to win the national championship that year, and you guys hung really tough. Did you? So, kind of part two of that question: did you feel that LSU team differently than you felt any other team you played in the past 2 years, like an Auburn or Maryland or any of these other Power Five, quote unquote, Power Five schools? Could you really tell like how good they were that year?
Don't get me wrong, they were a really good team.
Yeah.
But if we have Mackenzie, we 100% win. 100%. Like, without a doubt. And like you said, no disrespect to DJ, because DJ is a great player, great person. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? So, but Mackenzie was that damn good. Like, seriously. But I mean, he was just like a winner. He was just a winner. You know, he was gonna do whatever it took to win the game, whether it was handing the ball off 30 times, whether it was throwing the ball 30 times. You know, if he had to put his body on the line to go get a touchdown or whatnot, he would do it. So that was a good team. They really were. Defensively, they were a good team. Burrow was a good quarterback. I was like, you know, he's a really good quarterback. He doesn't make many mistakes.
Sure.
So we had to capitalize on the mistakes if they presented themselves. But yeah, I feel like, you know, if Mackenzie was in there, you know, I feel like it opened us up to so many more things that we could have done. And it would allow us to, you know, possibly get that win.
Yeah, it was a tough way to end that streak, but it was one hell of a game, and maybe some not so great calls. When we had that momentum there, and they called I think it was on Randy Charlton, or it might have been maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
It
was tough play, but it is what it is. So I wanted to move into like the next, the final 2 seasons of your career in 2019 and 2020. In 19, you guys still put up 10 wins and have a pretty good year, win the bowl game, are ranked for a good portion of the season. Then 2020, it seemed like all the momentum that had been built up kind of deflated a little bit. Obviously, just, it was a shortened season due to COVID, but, you guys lose 4 games, and really it seemed like a different version of the team we had seen at least the 2 out of those 3 years, if not all 3 of those years. What do you think happened those final 2 years? Not that you can expect to go undefeated every year. That's unrealistic, but it just didn't feel the same energy. It didn't feel like the same, I don't know if it's confidence or what you want to call it, but because there's still a ton of talent on those teams. I mean, you still had a huge part of the core for most of those 2 seasons, whether it's you, Gabe Davis, a lot of these guys. And of course, a lot of guys did, graduate and move on. But what do you think was the biggest difference those 2 years that, where there was a little bit of a drop off?
One of the biggest things was some of the seniors that we lost from the 2018 year. They were like a big part of our leadership, and just the team, and that leadership and roles, those started to shift to new players. With Taj leaving, the new leaders in the room became like AK and me. Some of the linebackers like Titus left. It shifted to E. Mitch. It just those small little things they mattered a lot. And we had a quarterback change. We went through the whole quarterback thing, trying to figure out our quarterback situation. They coming in. We knew the offense, but quarterbacks, they got to go through it. They got to go through the college experience. They got to go through learning a new offense. I'm talking about with Dylan. And
right.
So, there were some growing pains. And then, I feel like there were at times there were things that I could have done to help out also in that learning process. Maybe spend a little bit more time with Dylan or as a team, we could have spent more time with him just to, get everybody on the same page. And we still had success offensively, but I feel like we could have been even better because still talent-wise, like, we had the talent, but just some growing pains going through that those first, the 2019 and 2020 season. The 2020 season was crazy just because of COVID, and guys were missing so many practices because of regulations. I mean, like, if you had even the slightest symptom, you couldn't practice, and and it was crazy, like that whole year. And I'm pretty sure all the other teams had to deal with it too. So I don't want to say that as an excuse. Um, but it was just the whole year just felt off in 2020. Like just everything that we had to go through that season. Some people were just tired,
Mm-hmm.
just from the COVID stuff, being locked up in a room all day. You go and you practice, and then you go home. Some people didn't get to see their family or friends and things like that. So that COVID year was like a lot on a lot of different people mentally. And even for me, like that was the year I graduated. I didn't even, get to walk the stage or have my parents see me. I watched my name on like a YouTube video. So it was just so many things that I went through that COVID year. Um, mentally, emotionally, physically, that just, it just, we just couldn't get it together on the field and focus all that energy onto the field and be able to produce the way we wanted to.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I think that gets maybe overlooked is that COVID aspect. And, in the beginning of the season, you don't even know if you're going to have a season and all of that
Yeah.
goes into it. But, kind of a final question about just your UCF career. You're widely considered, and I personally think, one of the best running backs to ever do it at UCF. And that's a position where UCF has had a lot of greats. Kevin Smith, who's widely considered the best player in UCF history. And, guys like Latavius Murray, all these guys that have had pro careers. And you sit, fourth all time in school history, which behind Kevin Smith, Latavius Murray, and Willie English. Um, did first of all, what does that, feel like to have such an impact at UCF? And then, secondly, did you envision that you would have that type of impact when you start your career as a walk-on and, play minimally that first year to go from that to being really a top 5 ever running back in school history?
I mean, it feels good to have my names up there with those kind of guys because, I know Tays, I know Kevin Smith, I met Kevin Smith and, we chopped it up a little bit. And Tay, I know Tay real well. So to be able to be compared to, not compared, but to be up in the ranks with those kind of guys is definitely honoring. And I it's honoring. You just say that. And no, I didn't expect to be. I didn't expect things to play out the way that they did to be considered, one of those the best running backs. And as honoring as it is, I I don't want to say that like I don't care, but like it's like I feel like I have so much more to prove. Even past the college level. So I kind of take it with a grain of salt. I appreciate it. I really do. So I don't want this to get overlooked as, a guy who doesn't appreciate, uh, the words of, being considered as one of the greatest because I really do. But I just feel like I got so much more to prove and so much more to bring. And, I'm still out here trying to prove it, every day, still to this day, you know. And I want to be able to do that for the school because, like, I really love, like, UCF. I really love my career there. I really love how I was treated while I was there. And, like, the experience was second to none. So, I just want to go out there and prove it to everybody again that, past the college level, I can do it in the pros and be considered as one of the, hopefully one of the pro greats from UCF.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about a little bit about your pro career. I mean, you now have really carved out a role for yourself in the CFL, obviously a great league, and you've been on, I think, 2 different teams now, and now you're in Winnipeg. And, this past year you had your best pro season. You had a couple of touchdowns receiving wise, and, definitely some highlight reel plays that we've all seen on UCF's Twitter and sharing them and all that. Talk a little bit about your pro career journey so far, and is there goals to still go for the NFL, or are you kind of content with the CFL, or just talk about your pro career?
Yeah, I definitely want to try to get to the NFL. That's been one of my goals since I was a kid, childhood dream. So I'm just working every day to I keep saying it, but like prove it that that I belong in a league like that. And I'm just up there in the CFL. It's kind of crazy because I'm sorry, I'm going off topic a little bit, but it is so cold up there. I'm coming from Miami, and then I went to college. My first time leaving home was going to Orlando, so it don't get that much colder. But you go to Winnipeg, and the mindset is so different there. When you go up there, it's so cold, but it's like my hands are freezing trying to catch a ball, but it's like I love it though, because it's like if you're playing in that environment, then that means you're doing something right, because that means you're getting farther into the season and you're getting into the playoffs and things like that. So, what was your question? I'm sorry, I went off on a rant about that.
No, you pretty much answered. I was just asking, you asked about your goals, and then how is the game of CFL, and it's obviously has some different rules and everything like that. But what's that experience really been like playing in the CFL? Obviously, it's there's I think a few less teams in the NFL, and then obviously I think there was some rules of how many Americans can be on the team and all this stuff. So I was just wondering about the experience of playing in the CFL and how different it is.
Well, one of the biggest things, like you said, the American rules. There's only a certain amount of Americans that you can have on your team, and they have to have a certain amount of starting Canadians. So when they sub those Canadians out, they have to replace them with a Canadian. So what teams will do is they will designate certain positions as a Canadian position. So in Winnipeg, the running back position is a Canadian position. So that's why my role kind of changed a little bit from running back to receiver. And they still use me as a running back, but they have American receiver slots that I can play. So that's kind of how they try to get around the rules to allow me to play, so that they could put me in there as an American, because if they take out the Canadian running back and put me in, then they would have to take out an American receiver and replace him with a Canadian.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's weird with the rules, but even just sports wise, the running head start was very new to me when I first got up there. It's kind of crazy to me that people press. And then also the special teams is like the biggest rule changes. Everything else is just football, but special teams is so many different rules where you could give up a single, or every kick has to be returned. There's no fair catch, but they have to give you like a 5-yard halo or space around the ball for 5 yards in order for you to catch a punt. You could kick the ball right across the line of scrimmage and recover it for a new set of downs. So that could be like a first down, or it's crazy, like the amount of rules and things that you could do up there, especially on special teams. It's like you have to be locked into special teams. But at the same time, I like it because it brings a lot of more excitement to the game, especially the special teams. There's because you have to return the punt. So you have to bring it out. That means you have to there's no fair catch. You know what I'm saying? So you get more opportunities to try to spring off a punt return or a kick return, because if you don't bring it out, it's a single. So, and the field is longer too, longer and wider, and you definitely feel it.
Yeah.
So,
no doubt about that. Shifting gears a little bit back to UCF, are you still pretty active in following the team and watching the games now that so you've been kind of following?
I try to, because, and that's another thing. A lot of our games sometimes fall on UCF games or the same day, so I'll try to catch it beforehand, or if we don't have a game, I'll watch it obviously, but I'll try to watch the games if I can.
Yeah. So how'd you feel about the first Big 12 season? How do you feel about Coach Malzahn and the job that he's doing so far?
There were some games that they were a little disappointing, just some games, and just watch, because when I go back to school and I look at the talent, I'm telling you, there's a lot of good talent that goes through UCF. But sometimes there are certain things that people don't understand about why things are not working out unless you're in the building. So, they could be going through a million and one things, but the outside world will never know, and they ended up, getting some good wins in there. They ended up, having some losses that, should have been wins. But I think they're going to get it all together. They're going to pull it all together. And I feel like real shortly that this will be a top team in the Big 12 and in the country when they, when they get when they pull it all together, because there's a lot of good talent that comes through UCF. And I think Coach Malzahn does a good job of bringing in the talent and, coaching it up. I think he's doing a good job with the team. I'm glad that he's still here because, there hasn't been a lot of consistency with the coaching staff recently of UCF. So having somebody there that's, able to, each year set the foundation and, build with the leaders. The young guys are now starting to become the leaders that he recruited. So that goes a long way into the development of the team and pulling everybody along with you and, leading up to the wins. When you've got so many coaching changes, it's hard to set a foundation, because it changes from coach to coach. So I think he's doing a really good job, and, things are going to start looking good for him, like really, really soon. And I truly believe that.
Yeah, I believe that too. And it's been good to see, I think historically, when you look at UCF, their top position on offense, recruiting wise, and even going pro has been wide receiver, but really the last, since 2017, it's been running back, especially more so lately. You lose all these legends like you and Killens and Otis and all these guys, but we've been able to really stock up a running back. I don't know how much you've watched, but guys like RJ Harvey and Isaiah Bowser and Johnny Richardson. So it's been cool to see the running back room not have really much of a drop off and have some really great guys.
Yeah, it has been. So speaking to that, RJ, that's a dog, man. And he was there my senior year. He was just red shirting because he transferred, I believe. And when he came in, because I think originally RJ was playing quarterback, but then he came to UCF and played running back. But from there, I could tell RJ was going to be good. Just he was powerful. He's built well. He's very explosive. He was very patient as a running back, even back then. And I remember telling Coach Tuck, our running back coach, that RJ is going to be really good in the future. Because even when we do our little pass protection drills and things like that, I could feel the explosion in his pop and his hips when he's doing the drills and things like that. And I could tell that he was going to be a really good player, So, and if I'm not mistaken, he tore his ACL.
Yeah,
well, he got hurt
his first year.
So,
yeah,
right. And I think that was the year that he was probably going to, have a pretty big year. But he was able to get back on track, with it. But I always knew that RJ was going to be a really good back. I could just really see it inside of him. And even Johnny. Johnny was, he had to play a lot as a freshman, and he was a very explosive runner, super fast, super quick. He just reminded me so much of AK, So seeing those two guys having the success that they're having now at UCF is a really big thing for me, especially seeing them when they first came in to where they're getting to now.
Absolutely. Just one more big question before I ask you, kind of a speed round. Obviously, in the time that you were at UCF, college football has changed drastically, with the NIL and then the transfer portal and everything that's going on there. Even just now, you have to really re-recruit your own players every single year. And I ask this to most players that I interview on this podcast, and it's interesting that the results are somewhat mixed and how they feel about it. But what are your thoughts on NIL and the portal together? Separately, I think they're okay, but when you kind of combine the two, it's in my opinion made college football kind of seem like we went from the strictest rule where it's you can't even take someone out to lunch and the whole program gets shut down, versus now it just seems like there's no rules whatsoever, and it feels to it feels like a more wild version of the NFL. Like, because at least in the pros, that there's contracts that you can't just transfer mid-season if you don't like your situation and because you're under contract. Do you think it's helped the game of college football or hurt it having those two things? And I'm all for players getting paid, but when you talk about all these things going together, I mean, it feels like it's hurt some of the, for lack of a better term, the charm of college football. And that's obviously just my opinion, but I'm just wondering, as a former player, of course you would have wanted to gotten paid while you were there, but how do you feel just about having both of those things impacting college football? Has it been a negative or a positive?
Uh, Honestly, I don't really understand the NIL stuff and what's going on, so it's kind of hard for me to comment on it, just because I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure. First of all, I don't even know how it works like at all. Like I don't know where the money comes from, how they get paid, and the transfer portal stuff. From what I understand is that they get to transfer one time, right, without having to sit out or something.
Right, but now they are changing it to you could just transfer at any point. I mean, there's like windows when you could transfer, but it used to be, yeah, there for the last couple of years, it's been you can transfer one time freely, and if you transfer a second time, you'd have to sit out a year. But now that's gone. It's just, or it's going to be, I think, starting next season, where you can literally transfer every single season if you want to. You could play for 4 different college football teams if you want.
No, that's crazy. I don't. Honestly, I really don't know how to feel about that, because everybody's situation is different, you know. Um, and I don't know. I have no idea. In all honesty, I don't know.
Right, right. I get you. Yeah, it's definitely a new wave, and we'll see what happens if it gets a little bit more regulated or whatever happens. But so now I just kind of want to ask you some speed round type of questions. If you need a couple seconds to answer them, of course. But I love asking this question. Obviously, in practice at UCF, you're going up against a lot of talented players on the other side of the ball. So whether it was, I don't know, a linebacker, defensive lineman, or maybe someone in the secondary, who is the toughest guy at UCF to go up against in practice?
Richie Grant.
Okay.
Yeah, Richie.
Is that just like because of how hard he hits, or what was that?
He was just a very smart player. Like he knew everything. Like his instincts to take him to the ball was like crazy. And I feel like it showed in his gameplay. He was like a ball hawk, but his instincts were crazy. Like sometimes, yeah, I think it was Houston. Houston ran a reverse. I didn't play this game because I was hurt, but they ran a reverse, and everybody on our defense was full except for Richie. And if he wasn't there, they would have scored. And I think he made the tackle for a loss.
Wow.
But it's crazy because like literally the whole defense was faked out, and he was the only guy that was there, and he ended up making a tackle. So yeah, for sure, Richie.
All right. What about opponent wise? I want to exclude like a team like LSU or Auburn because you only played them once, but who was that team in the conference that you felt was just toughest to play against defensively? In the American, that it was like every year it was a challenge going up against their defenders.
Tulsa.
Really, Tulsa.
Tulsa.
I know we've had bad luck
Yeah.
against Tulsa.
Yeah. So again, the first time we played them, I didn't get the chance to play. The second time we did, I did, but I ended up getting injured in like the first quarter. But their defense was perfectly built for their players. Like, they had the perfect, and maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was the perfect defense for our offense, but they were everywhere. Like, I mean, they seem like they have a light box. And by a light box, I mean like we have more players in the box to run the ball than they do. So we'll try to run it. But then it's like everybody comes and crash the box, or they string us outside to where all their help was. And then we would try to hit them with RPOs to try to get their backers to come into the box and then throw it. But they were fast to react and get back out to it. They had Zayden Collins, who was a really good linebacker for them. So I feel like they just had like a really, really good defensive scheme for that group of players. And it gave us problems. It really did. So I would say that they were for me personally, like Tulsa was probably the toughest.
Gotcha. All right. Who was the funniest guy on the team?
Funniest. Oh, we had a lot of jokes. Marlon Williams was one of them. Titus Davis was another one.
I've heard
Taj
Titus
was
before.
yeah. Titus is hilarious. Taj was Jemias Pittman.
Yes, everyone says
Funniest.
Pittman. Yeah.
Funniest. Yeah. Jemias Pittman, the funniest player on the team by far. Him, number one.
Yep. Everyone said, I get a lot of guys that say Pittman. That's funny.
Yeah, Jemias Pittman, 100%.
Okay. All right. What is, maybe this means more to the fans than it does the players, but I know it certainly still matters for the players. Settle the debate, what is the best UCF uniform, that at least one that you wore in your time?
Including Space Game?
Yeah.
You got to take Space Game out.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Take the Space Game out. That's too easy.
I just like all black. I love wearing all black.
Black on black?
Yeah, black on black, black helmets, black cleats, black socks, everything. Just all black. Love it.
Okay. Yep. That's probably fair. Did you have a go-to spot either on campus or in Orlando for food?
Burger U, because it was right next to our dorms. And then if it was off campus, where did I used to go off campus? I used to eat Waffle House a lot, or Kyoto.
Yeah, Kyoto's a move.
Yeah. Kyoto, I don't even think they have it there anymore, but yeah, Kyoto was like my first, like, that's where I used to like to go.
Yeah, it's I have season tickets. I go up every year and there's always some new restaurant or something going on. It looks so different from when I was there.
Yeah. Burger U also is number one though. That's right there. So I go all the time.
Yep,
yeah.
It's a good spot. All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you hopping on. That was a great podcast. So, anytime you want to hop on, and I know you're busy during the season, but always down to chop it up about UCF football.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate talking to everybody, and hopefully, they enjoy this one.
Absolutely. That was another episode of the UCF Football Updates Podcast featuring legendary running back Greg McCrae. This episode, as always, can be found on my YouTube channel as well as my Instagram, ucf.football.updates. Once again, thank you, Greg McCrae, for coming on the UCF Football Updates Podcast.
Thank you.